The three witches lived in a castle upon a hill overlooking the dark, foreboding, yet beautiful Northshire forest. They would fly out of the castle at odd times, in order to snatch up a human who would then be fattened up for supper or to serve them as a slave. And that is how Johanna, Caitlin, and Bob all ended up in the castle. Johanna and were quickly put to work as slaves and were told by the other slaves never to speak unless spoken to, and to never ever speak to any of the other humans, down in the cells behind the kitchen, because they were the ones that were being fattened for the witches' dinner. Caitlin would bring food and water down to the cells for the humans beings that were being held there by the witches. That is where she found Bob. His hands were tired above his head and he was just dangling there. His feet a mere inches above the ground. "Why are you being punished?" Caitlin asked. "What did you do?" "Ah, the witches just like to play with their food," he said with a sarcastic grin. "Don't worry," she whispered in his ear, "they'll get here soon, just be patient." So she had to fill the soup spoon with water and then put the water jug down and then raise the soup spoon high above her head in order to be able to bring it up to his mouth so he could sip it. Looking at his scars, she thought he was so brave, and could not believe that the witches were going to have him for dinner. Not if she could help it, she thought to herself. But she said nothing to him about it, for she was on a mission, and nothing could get in the way of that. Not even true love. For it had been Sophie Scholl, herself the leader of the Human Resistance Front, who had tasked Caitlin to smuggle one of the vampires in their alliance into the castle. And it had worked. She had done it. So in the dark of the castle's halls where no light reached, Caitlin repeated the incantation that she had been taught by a witch ally of the humans, to undo the merging spell, that had merged her with the vampire so she could smuggle it into the castle, past all of the spells protecting the Trinity from all of the vampires, monsters, and werewolves. And so her body began vibrating violently side to side until you could now see two women's faces where there had been just one, as Caitlin and the vampire began pulling apart and separating from each other, until they were again separate entities standing next to each other. Then the vampire turned to her. "My name is Julianne Coipk, and if one of my children of the night decides to make a meal out of you, you must say my name out loud. Do you understand?" "Yes," said Kate. "A trinity is only as strong as its weakest link," said the vampire Julianne Coipk to Caitlin. "Tell me which one of the three is the friendliest, most human." "Well, that's easy," said Caitlin, "the witch with the one smoky eye. She's definitely more human than the other two." "Thank you," said the vampire, and then crouched down into the darkness and transformed into some kind of creature that Caitlin could not see, but could hear, as it scurried away. Then Caitlin went back to giving food and water to the prisoners. The vampire Julianne Coipk was now within the walls of the castle, that had kept her and her kind out for so long because it was surrounded by spells and incantations that they could not breach. And so she wasn't going to let this golden opportunity slip. And she quickly set about transforming the slaves of the castle into vampires. Turning sometimes requires a 3-bite, 3-night process, unless the person is already sufficiently evil. And then way turn willingly, it's much quicker, so the vampire Julianne Coipk had to take care not to be discovered. The only two humans she spared were Caitlin and Johanna because they were part of the vampire-human truce that had gotten her into the castle. An alliance with humans. It still didn't feel right, but it was an alliance of convenience, more than anything else. Outside of the castle, in the